everybody. Welcome to a brand new season of Rehash, a Web3 podcast. I'm your host, Chen, and today we're kicking off season 10 with Bunny, CEO of Dora, an on-chain discovery engine that's making it easier than ever for people to discover new apps and projects across a multitude of chains. Well, we talk about why on-chain data is important, and more specifically, why human readable on-chain data is important. And Bunny explains why he believes read-only block explorers will die over the long run, and will end up with dev-focused, analytics-focused, and consumer-focused experiences for on-chain data. Bunny also shares his thoughts on what the end state of consumer crypto is and how well we're progressing towards that goal. I hope you enjoy this episode, and don't forget to hit subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes with the amazing guests we have lined up for you this season. Bunny was nominated by myself, Chen, and voted onto the podcast by Katy Atherholt, Jimmy Chang, Nich, David Phelps, Triumph, Irina Marinescu, and Defi Beats. So without further ado, here is my conversation with Bunny. Bunny, I'm really excited to have you on Rehash finally. I feel like this was a long time coming. You've been nominated a couple of times in the past, and we finally got you on. That's honestly the case with so many people that come on the podcast because there's so many good people nominated each season, and there's only room for 10 people each season. So a lot of people, it seems like a lot of people, third time's a charm. Like the third time they get nominated is the time they make it on. So that's maybe some pro tips for people in the future who are trying to get on the podcast. But I'm so glad that you're finally here, and I'm so glad that we're finally getting to hear about Dora. I feel like Dora has had a big moment recently. Like in the last few months, you guys launched Dora 2.0. You announced a really big raise. So I've just been seeing Dora all over my timeline. So maybe to start off, can you just give people a high-level overview of what Dora is and kind of from the beginning, what was the problem that you were trying to solve with Dora, and how has it evolved until today?
Thank you so much. And yes, I'm very happy to finally be here, and I'm glad that me tweeting about please let me just chat to three girl actually worked. So I'm very happy about that. And yes, third time's the charm. Dora set out to be, first of all, we'll start as the multi-chain search engine, which we've grown to become so much more than that since then. As of now, Dora, what the true focus of Dora is now is to become your on-chain discovery engine. And how do we do that is we do it simply by unifying on-chain experiences. We get to this by thinking through some of the parallels from the early online history in which we saw the golden age of online adoption come hand in hand with the golden age of its search engines. As people started actually getting this semblance of, oh, there are goods and services that just so happen to be online. Maybe there are now goods and services that just have to be on-chain. And we want to be able to procure them through a single unified interface. Do we really care about the complexities behind the different SDKs, different trust security assumptions that are being done on a per chain, per ecosystem basis? We really don't. In the excessive way that we just care that is a website safe enough to access? Okay, that's good. Please let me interact with this online experience. We are looking to unified on-chain experiences, and that is why we created this unified on-chain discovery engine.
That's a great high-level overview. I would love to dive a little bit deeper and break down some of the individual parts, because I know you guys have Dora Search, Dora ID, all of these different aspects of Dora. But high level, what is, I guess, the primary reasons why somebody would go on Dora and use Dora? What are they looking for when they do that?
So that is where I think a lot of the spirit of Dora as a product started to shine. People, even though we thought that, okay, we want to create this unified on-chain data block explorer experience, people did not end up using Dora for that. What people really started resonating with at Dora was precisely the one piece of identity that they have to relate with different on-chain products, which is their wallets. I sincerely thought that maybe we will be a bit further into on-chain adoption in a global basis, but that's fine. Progress can come in many different ways. We have seen the right stablecoins and whatnot, blah, blah, blah. But the very fascinating thing to me is that people want to access all these new on-chain experiences, all this on-chain discovery. They relate to on-chain discovery through the lens of their wallets. So that is why we started creating Dora ID, this unified multi-chain interface that lets you see all of your different tokens, NFTs, transactions resolved back to a single EVM address. And now that we're expanding towards, let's say, other ecosystems like Movement, like Fluent, like the Solana ecosystem, we're able to now also bring all of these these identity pieces back to a single profile with Dora ID. That is how we saw why people were starting to use Dora. People don't necessarily get too much out of Dora only on the per transaction basis. It's actually, interesting enough, our least visited page type within Dora, which I find really fascinating. Like people first and foremost look at profile, then usually NFTs because we have a very heavy NFT focus audience, then tokens, and then transaction pages. And even then they very rarely click on the transaction. They just look at the transaction list and that's it.
Oh, interesting. And are people looking up their own addresses or are they looking up other people? Like, is it like people who are going on being like, I wonder what Bunny is holding in his wallet. Let me go like stalk Bunny. Or is it like to track their own assets?
I think there is this idea that we all have that, people like to snoot on each other, but we don't really care about someone's Venmo transactions that much. Right. I think in crypto, because we're power users, we have this idea that everyone is so into this technology as much as we are. But I think people, for the most part, just look at their addresses. Every now and then I have gotten in some chats with some either VCs or crypto power users that are like, why would I use Dora if I can use these 10 other really heavy infrastructure or analytic services? I'm like, yeah, but do you think if your parents want to interact with crypto, would you show them those tools, or would you show them more simple, unified, seamless interface that can actually get to the point of interacting with the chain, right? We don't really care about on-chain data as much as we care about actually driving usage to the different business that we're into. And I think that is the value that Onchain brings.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing about Dora is that all the transactions are human readable, right? So like if I were to go on Etherscan or Basescan or any of these individual block explorers, the things that I'm just seeing the transaction hash, the wallet address it came from, the wallet address it's going to, and all of it is kind of like, it doesn't really tell me too much instantly. Sometimes it might give me more information than others. Like sometimes maybe if I'm sending you some money, it might connect to my ENS, to your ENS, and maybe I'll recognize your ENS and I can see that instantly and be like, okay, that's when I sent money to Bunny. But other times, if I'm interacting with a new contract, that's just a bunch of like numbers and letters. And it really I have to do some digging and investigating and also like remembering what did I do on September 15th, 2024, to figure out what the transaction is. So on Dora, all of the transactions are human readable, right? So I can identify instantly what this actually was that I did.
And I think that at the very least, that has served as a way to make people feel comfortable with on-chain experiences. People don't really like to interact with things that they don't truly understand. Chains have become a bit more high throughput, especially as we see it in, let's say, Solana, Mega, as a movement type ecosystems. We see that people have stopped focusing on the transaction as a way to confirm action, and they just focus on either the transaction feedback that is given to them by an application, or even beyond that, they check their state changes within the user profile itself. Right? Like they look at their wallet, they look at their unified ID within Dora. So I think that is also something interesting, which we're starting to see early signs that users finally trust on-chain transactions enough, or they've gotten enough of a feedback loop of trust from looking at a transaction, understanding, and now feeling control that, okay, at least the action I wanted to do, the intent that I had was fulfilled, so I can just trust that is taken care of as long as it's on my profile page.
The human readable aspect of it too, I think stands out to me a lot because I think, it's something that I've been saying ever since I've been in the space, back in 2020, and we've made a lot of progress towards that in the last 4 or so years that I've been in the space. But I think there's still a lot of room to grow. Where do you see the end state of this being as it applies to, where are we trying to get to with how human readable do things need to be? Or is it, the burden is on the user to just figure some of this stuff out? I've kind of heard people argue both sides of that, where some people say it has to be just completely human readable, none of it has to seem techie at all. And then other people are well, if you want to transact with the blockchain, it's on you to figure some things out. And it's on you to educate yourself enough that you understand some basic parts of how blockchain works.
No, I think I can definitely see both sides. And also, quite frankly, we work with teams that are on both sides of the spectrum. We work with teams that have admitted to us only 5% of our chain is readable, and we don't care to increase that readability that much. And we work with teams that are saying, oh, we only want to see, like, why isn't this transaction decoded, right? And they say, well, it actually, contextualizing transactions is a really hard problem. And we've now seen 8 Block Explorer companies go out of business, focusing too much of their time on that. So I think it's also a problem of like incentive alignment, and it's a problem of, let's say, the burden is not necessarily too much on the user, but it's on whoever actually cares enough about someone else's activity or their own activity to make sure that everyone else in the world is able to have visibility into it.
I guess, like, from your view, like, where do you see us ending up? Is it the protocols that care the most about human readableness that will stick around in the long term, or is it the ones that are, don't care as much, and you think people eventually will just learn to like figure it out?
I think it will come to a point in which it will be on per application basis. There has been some efforts in which, let's say, with this one chain that said only 5% of our chain is readable, the rest is just like noise, or feels like noise, at least for now. Most of their focus was on contextualizing the readableness of their top applications. As soon as you're able to contextualize just the top actually used by human applications, you then create an environment in which people feel more at ease, more welcome, more at home, honestly, interacting with these on-chain products, instead of just being scared of like, oh my God, it's just a bunch of head. I don't know what to do with it. And also, even for our counting purposes, maybe it's a little bit easy, right? Yeah, still, at the end of the day, if you're, let's say you're a programmer, or not even a programmer, honestly, if you're in every single field, in any single hyper-specialized field, you don't really care too much about what someone else in another field is doing. You don't care about the complexities. You're just scared that it's okay.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing is that it's the burden really is going to fall on the apps, like at the app layer. It's not the protocol's job to do something like this. It's not the user's job to have to educate themselves on, deep blockchain things. It's really the app layer's job to make sure that their app is consumer facing. And that kind of makes sense. It's like the protocols are building, the structure, the infrastructure for these apps to exist. And so the apps that are building on top of it really have to make sure that whatever they're building is going to be consumer friendly, because they're the ones that are consumer facing, right?
But yeah, no, I see it as the burden falling on the user, and also, on an application developer.
Yeah.
Because if you're an application as well, you care about what is happening on your app and making the user feel comfortable within it. You don't really care as an app developer about what is happening on, let's say, on your competitor as much, or maybe you do, or maybe what is happening on a completely orthogonal app that you're never going to use, right? I don't really care about what is happening on, let's say, I was going to say, I don't care about how this table works. This table does look very cool. So maybe I do care about how it works, but I don't care enough to learn about how to install it and all that stuff.
What do you think will happen like over the long term to something like Etherscan, or just like the way that any block explorer is set up today? Like, what do you think? Do you think they're just going to die out in the future, or do you think they're going to evolve with times and be more useful? We've been in a bear market for a very long time, and so we haven't had a lot of like growth in terms of just not like the kind of growth that we had in 2021 with NFTs, and we brought in a lot of off-chain people into the on-chain world. We haven't seen that too much lately, but with the next wave of whenever that happens, do you think that that's going to make these existing block explorers essentially obsolete because they're just not catering to the masses enough? Or do you think they'll evolve and grow with the times?
I think block explorers over the long run will try to fructate into these categories of being either developer-focused block explorer, one in which products like Katy Atherholt, Etherscan, and Blockscan are honestly quite shine. They are able to provide quite good developer infrastructure. The team at Blockscan being open source, and also the team at Atherholt having done amazing strides at pretty much recreating and pushing the boundaries of what the Etherscan experience is like. I've been amazing to see. Really, really happy with the way that they've developed. They're on the second category that I will put block explorers on are on the analytics portion thing. we see market share for them. Products like Dune, Naz, and Arkham. I think there's a lot of products over there. On the consumer side of the block explorer market is where I find it to be the most fascinating, because we now today have seen like eight consumer block explorers die out because they honestly cater, in my view, to the completely wrong market. One in which, as power users, we like to think that the tools that we would use as power users will be adopted widely by their massive audience. However, as you pointed out, we have not had this insane growth or reach from onboarding moment that we have back in 2021, 2022, 2015 especially. So we have gotten this net new user that will be curious about Onchain products has not been there to meet the demand of different products that attempted to onboard some of them, right? So there's a problem in the consumer landscape of block explorers in which they are either too early or too power user focused, and then they get no adoption from us. You need to be very intentional about which side you're catering to, and just adapt with. I think, however, on this thesis is predicated on us seeing block explorers as they are today. Truly, like, I do not believe on the read-only block explorer at all, especially after seeing 8 of them go bankrupt, even though they all raise. There's some rate out there that raised like 10 times more than what we did, but they went out of business very quickly due to infrastructure decisions, due to bad economic models, due to bad commercial models, due to a lack of PMF. I don't think that people like Onchain. People don't really care about what's happening on chain. People care about how they can actually interact with these chains and how they can relate to their goods and services. That is what people truly care about.
Does Dora also like aggregate and help people understand what this on-chain data means? Like similar to what you would be able to build with like a Dune dashboard, where it's not just telling me like showing me like what my transactions are, but it's telling me, giving me information like, you know, this is like how many NFTs I've collected, and like this is, you know, how much like trading volume I have, or like how much money I've made from trading like this coin or whatever. Like, does it give analytics and stuff like that as well?
Yeah, so that we got a request by both chains and also users on the analytics portion of things. I think block explorers as just raw read-only data are not really successful. However, what people really like, I think, like, for some reason, we all find it very fascinating to know a little bit more about ourselves, like Spotify rap type experiences. Yeah. That definitely has a product market fit. And we are getting towards that. We're releasing Dora Insight, actually. We like to have very cheesy names for stuff. I think it makes it more easily stickable to users, right? So yeah, we're releasing Dora Insights, giving you a little bit more visibility as to what is happening, let's say, within the arbitrum morbidity system, or what is happening within the optimism superchain, right? Like these types of insights do make people feel a little bit more not only knowledgeable about what is happening in the space, but also, what is my ecosystem growing? Am I growing with the ecosystem? Should I be exploring other ecosystems that are growing faster than mine? Or, what am I missing, right? Like, why is everyone so excited about this change? Should I be in that? So these types of insights, I do think are valuable for the user. And when it comes to the chain foundation teams, honestly, it also helps them actually have a proper analytics or data-driven decision-making for how they do growth, right? If you see a lot of transaction activity, higher gas usage, higher gas usage posted on your chain, maybe you're doing things great and maybe you should keep doing that. Yeah.
I'll just give you a hypothetical. Like, for example, for myself, like I am not very familiar with the Solana ecosystem. Say I want to learn more about Solana. I want to discover apps on Solana. I want to discover NFTs, projects. Like, I just want to like learn more about Solana. How could I use Dora to explore on-chain, like what's going on in the Solana ecosystem?
So we are expanding towards the Solana ecosystem, and sadly we don't have it integrated just yet. But soon you'll be able to go on Dora, even on the homepage. We will already prime you with if you are interested on this chain, click here. Very easy call to action. You can go in there, and then we'll show you the different trending versions of different tokens, different NFTs, maybe a mint of the day that we curated through being able to collaborate either with the foundation directly or with different artist collectives that can nominate themselves, or we also are even choosing some artist collectives that we would like to highlight within our different ecosystems. And that way you can finally start learning a little bit more about these ecosystems, these different applications. We have an ecosystem tab that we're able to, that we use to post every single project that gets deployed on a new chain. We try to map it out to certain smart contracts as well sometimes, but sometimes it's also even more helpful to say, oh, these projects, Twitter is it, right? So that way you can start learning more about these systems, and let's say through indexing, let's say of NFT data, you're able to showcase as well some stuff like, are you interested in this NFT? This is their website, this is their Discord, Telegram, and whatnot. We want to give people as much information as they want, and yeah, just meet them where they're at.
Yeah, I think that can be really helpful too for preventing, or not necessarily preventing scams, but just helping people stay safer on chain. Because if I, say like I go on, I see a project that's like Pudgy Penguins. I'm like, okay, yeah, like sounds familiar. Like I know that. And I want to verify if the person messaging me this link to their supposed Pudgy Penguins project is real or not. I could go on Dora and search for that project and see if any of my other friends are holding it. And if none of my friends are holding this, then likely it's a scam, right? Because I probably have some friends that are holding Pudgy since it's a pretty popular project. So is that like something that is something you guys are thinking about, or a priority is like keeping people safe on chain as well through providing all of this information and making it all human readable as well?
Yeah, a lot of our priorities are honest for the longest time was on the convenience and simplicity of navigating on chain, right? Being able to achieve that also comes with the fact that on-chain can be dangerous. Even today, I actually had a bit of an on-chain scare. Because some wallets and some tokens were supported on some wallets, so I had to use a way older version of a wallet, and I had to do a bunch of more complicated activity that I actually like to do. But I learned something. But I don't think I don't think my mom would like to learn that lesson today on-chain. What's our priority is on actually letting people feel comfortable, feeling that they can trust us to actually start navigating on chain. And that is the whole ethos behind discovery, right? Like you want to create a safe space for discovery and playfulness with on-chain products, with new technology in general, right? No one really wants to try a new technology if they feel even is slightly unsafe with it. There's a very small category of people on a global basis that feel comfortable doing that. But if we want this technology to get adopted, then yes, it's a priority.
Yeah. Have you thought about like how all of this will eventually link to like reputation systems, like on-chain or decentralized reputation systems? I feel like I've had so many conversations recently about like decentralized reputation. So that's been top of mind for me. And I could see how over time, as you build more like features onto Dora, more verifiability, that you could use Dora as a single source of truth for what is real and what isn't. And that could over time help projects and eventually even people like individually build up their reputation on chain as well. Is that something that you've thought about? Do you have any thoughts on that?
We've seen a few reputation projects come around that try to create a semblance of on-chain reputation, which quite frankly were early versions of what we eventually wanted to do with Dora. Something that we noticed that it's not necessarily something that you want to do. I don't like calling it on-chain reputation. I like calling it just on-chain clout, because at that point, it very much feels like a little bit gamified, right? You don't want to use on-chain reputation to say, do collateralized loans, because they can be easily gameable. As soon as you know a system and you program it so programmatically displayed, especially in an on-chain setting, in a public manner, it's a bit more easy to game it. But what people do feel very happy about and resonate with is that, oh, I've been swapping a lot. Oh yeah, I'm a swapper, or I'm a DJ. And people like to resonate with these things. Today, people feel like they belong to a lot of these internet collectives or these reputation categories by owning these different tokens and NFTs. Or even being able to get an airdrop actually also forms as a way of on-chain reputation. So there are indirect ways by which Dora can help this on-chain reputation by saying, oh, look at this person's address. They have a lady, they have a pudgy penguin. You know what they're about, right? But I think that to me, at least, this is more analogous to social clout than reputation that you can use for financial say.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I can totally see that now that you've said it. We do have a question from the audience from Gonzalo. He said, what is Bunny's favorite use of Dora on a day-to-day basis besides checking a transaction?
Sure.
I think he's asking for your personal favorite. Yeah.
100%. Actually, just like going to a new chain. We have Dora actions that let you cross-chain swap and bridge into new systems. I don't like using Dora much when it comes to check transactions, actually. I also even found myself not even checking transactions anymore, just because I don't really care the complexities behind some of the transactions. Sometimes I do some like today, I did some very complex stuff. I did not check the transaction, if the transaction went through. I checked my wallet because even there were delays between the different applications that I was using. So I technically knew some, let's say, application 1, 2, and 3. Application 2 was still loading, but I knew 3 had finished and maybe 1 had finished. So there was a void, quite literally, of information that I just had no idea about. I was just like, okay, whatever. I'll just check my wallet at the end. There you go. My token was there, and that was all fine. So I primarily use it to track generally on-chain activity, cross-chain, of my own wallet, and then to get into a new chain that we integrate with. And that's it.
Yeah, I could see it. He also said in the comments too, like, that's a great question, how to explore other chains. I do think that I can see that being one of the biggest use cases is just people wanting to explore different blockchains than the one that they typically use and seeing what else is happening there. And even like within because right now it's EVM supported, right, across all EVM chains.
So right now we are primarily working with EVM-based chains. However, we are expanding into the movement ecosystem and now Solana as well. Right. So anything from moves and network extensions will see them on Dora very soon.
Yeah. So I mean, even somebody right now who like primarily transacts on Optimism and they want to go and explore Base or go and explore like Arbitrum and see what's happening there, like they could use Dora to do that and just get more well-versed into other EVM compatible EVM ecosystems, there's already so many. So already there's like a lot that people can do there in terms of exploring new chains and new ecosystems.
Yeah, exactly. And also, I guess to highlight that every single one of these chains are effectively used servers, right? Like they may have some peculiarities that make them more well suited for certain applications or whatnot. But at the end of the day, even though we do have an abundance of L2s, there's still quite a few things to learn in each one of them.
Yeah, absolutely. Longer term for Dora, what do you see as like the end state for what Dora is trying to accomplish? Like once the full vision is built out.
We want to be, certainly we want to unify the on-chain economy, right? Like when I say that, I don't mean it in that, it's interoperability, infrastructure for it and whatnot, but I genuinely mean it that if you any point in time are even slightly curious about what is happening on chain, except the way that people sometimes want to learn about a new good service that just happens to be offered online, I want Dora to be the one place that you as a, let's say even as a power user, you can show to anyone around you and say, hey, are you curious about this thing? Yeah, just go on Dora, you'll find it, right? Like in the same way that people said, Google it. Like that is where I want us to take Dora. And we're also very close with the Google team as well. They really like the pursuit we're taking. And we actually chatted very closely about how a lot of the adoption of Google was primarily through, let's say, products that show you what was trending online, because people didn't know what was happening online early days. So I think that we're seeing some of that. We're bringing some of that back to Onchain now.
Yeah. And would it be where you could actually type in a human readable sentence like, what is pudgy penguins? And it would take you to the actual contract of the site and give you their Twitter links and like all of that information. Is that how you are envisioning it?
Instinctively, I would like to say yes. However, I've now seen 5 block explorers that went out of business doing that, because right now I guess on-chain power users don't really like that US just yet. I think that a lot of our users see it as a very cool trick in the sense way that people like to play with a new AI agent or like a new ChatGPT type wrapper, but then they don't really use it, right? Like it's something cool. It's very technically complex. It's something that we already have for online, so maybe we'll work on chain. But yeah, we just haven't seen enough of that adoption just yet. What we have seen though is people searching keywords, and it pains me to say this, but people still searching hex and actually interestingly enough, ENS. ENSs are very consistently one of the most searched things, and then people usually search up an address or like an ENS, and if it's not associated or it contains the other thing that they were searching for, that is how they get there.
That actually does make sense now that I think of it. Like, for example, I discovered a new tool called Dexa that can basically like parse through all of my podcast episodes, which we have over 100 episodes. And you can just type in sentences like you would to Google, like, you know, you can type in like, what is an NFT? And it'll pull up all the episodes where we talked about what is an NFT. Or you could talk about like which, you know, layer 2 rollups are big today or something. And it'll pull up all the episodes there. And it's like, in theory, it sounds like a really cool tool. But like you were saying, like in practice, now that I think of it, I actually like hardly ever use the tool, even though I think it's a really cool tool. So yeah, I don't know what it is, why people don't actually use it, even though it's like really cool.
I think it's just that we know what information. So like I think it has to do with the fact that we don't really care about on-chain data. What we care about is discovery of new interesting things, right? And discovery doesn't necessarily start internally. There's internal and external discovery. You can create quest journeys for people to take on and have a more guided, handheld discovery journey. And you can create some, let's say, trending tabs that show you not what you should discover, but what the world is discovering. And maybe you can be part of this global movement as well. And then, of course, there's, I think, a lot of crypto native users do have this very inquisitive mind. So they have a lot more of an internal, I guess, discovery drive. So they know what they want and they are just looking for the best way to find it, right? But that is, again, a very much power user use case that you don't go on TikTok and then search the keywords. You just go on TikTok and you hope that your feed will tell you what something you'll like.
Yeah. Yeah. Is that a feature that you guys are trying to build in with Dora in the future too? Almost something like Daylight, where it just shows like other projects that like wallets you're connected to are following, like other projects you might like because you minted this. So you might also want to mint that.
Yes, I think, however, it's a very interesting on-chain social problem right now. And I imagine that a lot of the listeners to the show will relate to this, but I don't really do a lot of actions on chain unless I know that a friend that I trust a lot has told me that it will be a good action, right? And that doesn't necessarily mean like the insider information, but more so it means that a lot of the social dynamics of what is happening on chain are very peer-to-peer and not necessarily declared on chain first, and then, you know, pattern may emerge and then people are able to engage with it. Yes. But by the time that pattern emerges, I wonder if, I don't think that For You page on Daylight is too much of a leading indicator as much as it is a trailing indicator.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah.
That, however, does not mean that you cannot create this global, hey, everyone's doing this, maybe you want to do it too, right?
Yeah. And so are you saying like Dora is more of going to be like a leading indicator type of thing instead of like a trailing indicator like Daylight is?
Not necessarily trying to put us a little bit ahead of them. I think that they build a good product. It's just more so a matter that we target the audience. Our target audience is one in which maybe they don't have, there's not as much information asymmetry, right? Like we just tell them, hey, this is what's happening on chain. Maybe you think it's cool, maybe not. You can explore around. There's a lot of chains out there. There's a lot of different trendy. You like NFTs? No, you hate them? Okay, here's tokens. You like tokens? Okay, go interact with them, right? It is more so about creating, in my view, a trends page for Actually, this very, very concrete example. I was showing the trends page to this team and they didn't seem too interested until I said, hey, maybe there can be a trends page for RWAs and which one gives you the high yield. And then they were like, whoa, we need this product. How isn't this alive just yet? And in the back of my mind, I was like, this is the only person I've ever heard to be excited about that trends page for RWAs. But hey, this person also knows a lot of other asset managers and they will 100% use Dora just to see what is the trendiest RWA.
Do you still see most people using Dora for like people that are interested in the financial aspects of things like trading and stuff? Or do you see them more like I would consider myself to be somebody who is interested in exploring new apps and new, more like consumer facing things, not so much interested in trading or exploring DeFi products? Do you see most of your users falling into like the DeFi bucket or more like my persona bucket?
My persona, definitely more consumer focused. Our top performing quotes, tweets, and also actual on-chain actions are all based on NFTs. We haven't had as much luck of getting people to actually trade on things, except when, I will say this, except when, let's say, getting from token A to token B is required to mean something. Then we have had quite a bit of luck of getting people to actually start using the swapping widget and whatnot. But yeah, that is what we're seeing. And even then, we're expanding to slot, right? And also with the movement where there is quite a bit of trading activity. So maybe we'll see a bit more of that activity coming in.
When you say like the EVM data is all on there, is it like pulled automatically from the various protocols on EVM or the various chains on EVM? Or is it still like, are you adding projects manually still?
We are adding a few applications. The applications we can add manually. Some of the mapping of applications to the smart contracts can be done also a little bit more manually and systematically. The NFTs, though, we are working towards increasing search for them because it's a bit of an interesting technical problem, actually, because there's a lot of noise on chain and you don't necessarily want to pay to post information that literally no one is going to want to find or everyone to use. So there are a lot of improvements that we still need to do actually on the search portion of things. And on top of that, we have coverage of quite a few chains, but we haven't covered just yet some of the largest chains out there until, we're actually now working with a few of them. So maybe you'll see a bit of increased coverage soon.
Yeah. Well, okay. So like relatedly, you asked, if like our Rehash contract was like connected to the name Rehash, and I'm not sure. So that might be an important question too, is what do people need to do in order to like give their contract a proper name to make it searchable?
Actually, it's a good question. It's something that we haven't thought too much about. The main thing, though, is that there are some, let's say, you can declare the name of the contract once you're able to publish it and then verify it. I think to me, that is the easiest thing. And then there's also actually one way more simple thing that if you go to the bottom of Dora, you see that there's a little thing that says contribute. You can click on submit labels and then you're able to say, oh, this is my contract address, this is my dApp name, this is the contract name. And you can also provide your username or address such that we can keep track of who are contributors of Onchain contextualization, right? I do still think that there are some areas in which, for better or for worse, it needs to be the manual. And I think increasing context of on-chain contract is one of the manual processes. We know of a few chains that quite literally have some DevRel teams just dedicated to finding the teams behind some contracts, and they're like, hey, can you verify? Can you give it a name? Who are you? I know it's the one last thing I'll say is that I do genuinely believe that on-chain contextualization needs to be a community-driven effort, mostly because it's quite frankly a full-time job. And I've seen way too many blogs for companies go out of business just trying to contextualize on-chain data. I don't want that to keep on happening. Not only because nothing against competition, it's just more so that it's people's lives, times, peace of mind. I think that maybe we as an entire industry can do a better effort on contextualizing this on-chain data.
Yeah, absolutely. I see that form now. Super helpful. How do you make sure, now that I'm looking at this form, I'm thinking like, how do you make sure that the things that people submit through the form are legit? Like, obviously, I'm just like trying to submit Rehash, but like, what's stopping somebody from, submitting something that's like totally wrong?
You can submit it. I think we'll just fact check it. We can double check with like the DAP team. We can say, hey, this one seems really interesting. Like, is this real? We have had someone apply for a job through the contribution page. So we're like, okay, this contract is definitely not called, hi, my name is Bo, and I studied here, and I have this many years of experience. It would be hilarious if that was a contract name, but most likely it's not, right? It's really funny. I think that we all take for granted that curation or like filtering is just like there and it exists across every aspect of our lives. But no, like spam filtering, as there's, maybe you've seen the interviews with the early spam filters, Phelps and Sanity moderators for faith, right? You see those interviews. So I think that we'll get to that at some point on Chain. It won't be pretty, but it's something that needs to be done really from it.
Yeah, for sure. I also see it says like add your username or address if you want to be recognized. I think that could be, not to, my brain is just always going back to reputation, but like that could be a good way too to keep people honest too, is like if they want to submit something totally wrong, their name's going to be attached to it. So you don't really want to build a reputation off of that.
Yeah, we consider something along the lines of like, right now it's just a Google form, right? So you can attach any wallet address you can, but we have considered making this form an on-chain one that you have to sign off on before you submit it, right? So that way you have to at the very least, you have to go through the trouble of creating a new address before submitting something.
Yeah, exactly. Do you have any final thoughts on Dora? Anything that we didn't cover that you want to make sure people know about?
I think people have gotten a bit jaded on these new L2s and too many chains, too many networks, but honestly, that is how technology evolves, and also how it's not a matter of how we make these, how many more chains we create, but about what uses we give to each one of them, right? If there's actually stuff that people want to see, people want to use within all these ecosystems, we want to make sure that people are able to actually have a single place that they can be highlighted on and find them. And we want to make Dora that place for you.
Yeah, bullish. And then the last question I'm asking everyone this season, you're the first one, so you don't know what it is yet, is I'm just asking everyone to give me like one word or one phrase that they think will describe 2025, like in the context of crypto.
I think abundance. And this comes from both the good side and the bad side of abundance. I think that with abundance, there's a lot of people can get overwhelmed by abundance. People can also be, of course, very grateful for abundance. And we come far as an industry. We'll see. But I think that people sometimes, we can all get a little bit tired of some of the same things coming over and over.
Cool. Well, we'll see if that pans out. Thank you so much, Bunny. Tell people where they can find you if they want to follow you personally, and then also where people can go to check out Dora.
You can find me on @ConecoCapital on Twitter and on a lot of other social media as well. And then you can find Dora on @SearchOnDora on Twitter.
Perfect. Thank you so much. We'll include those in the show notes to make it easy for people. Appreciate you taking the time. I know it's 2 a.m. for you right now, so really appreciate you taking the time to come on the podcast. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. We'll be back again next week with another episode of Rehash. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Rehash. Rehash is hosted and produced by me, Diana Chen, and supported by our community of NFT holders who curate our guest lineup each season. To get involved, head over to our website at rehashweb3.xyz and collect this episode as an NFT. Anyone who collects an episode becomes part of the Rehash community and will be able to nominate guests for future seasons. Also, be sure to follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at RehashWeb3 or on Warpcast and Lens at Rehash, and join our community on Telegram at t.me/rehashweb3 to hash it out with fellow listeners. If you enjoyed this episode, please rate, review, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you again next time.